Welcome back to Chokitable Media. The ongoing diplomatic row over the attack carried out by Israel in Doha, targeting the leaders of Palestinian people, Hamas, has been gathering a lot of reaction, majority of which are very negative and adverse, rejecting the attack on Hamas and the sovereign state of Qatar. I have right here Mr. David Hurst, a journalist, a founder of Middle East High, a platform that used to look deeper into events in the Middle East. He is going to give us more analysis on this latest event and provide historical background for people to understand the origin of the problem up to this latest dastardly act of the State of Israel. Let's listen to David.
Every time Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tries to kill Hamas leader Khaled Mashal, it ends in humiliation for Israel. The first time was back in 1997. Mossad agents entered Jordan posing as Canadian tourists. Two of them waited at the entrance to Mashal's office in Amman, and when their target walked in, one held a device to his left ear that transmitted a fast-acting poison. Mashal's bodyguards caught the two agents, but 6 others took refuge in the newly installed Israeli embassy in Amman. Mashal was a Jordanian citizen at the time, and King Hussein was angry. He demanded that Israel turn over the antidote and threatened both to put Mossad agents on trial and pull out of the historic peace agreement he'd signed only 3 years earlier in Wadi Arba, recognizing Israel. Former US President Bill Clinton forced Netanyahu to comply. Humiliatingly, Danny Yatom, then head of Mossad, flew to Amman with the antidote. Mashal, who was by then in a coma, survived. But that wasn't the end of the affair. King Hussein said he would only let the other 6 Mossad agents go free if Netanyahu released the leader of Hamas, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, from prison, along with a large number of other Palestinians. The whole affair proved a big blow to Israel. The Sheikh began a victory tour of the region. Mashal's career in Hamas was launched. He had been, prior to that, relatively junior in the organization. And Hamas itself gained in prestige as a movement that could stand up to a regional bully. Whether the same scenario plays out today is quite another matter. Netanyahu tried again to kill his arch nemesis, Mashal, by ordering an airstrike on a meeting Hamas was convening in Doha to discuss Donald Trump's latest ceasefire proposal. Only a standard Hamas security procedure of moving venue after the participants had arrived and separating them from their mobile phones saved Mashal and the entire Hamas negotiating team from extinction in Doha on Tuesday. The building they were in was very close to the one that Israeli planes hit, and the timing was right, but they got the wrong building. As the truth began to emerge, Israeli reaction turned quickly from jubilation that they'd wiped out the leadership of Hamas in the same manner as they dispatched the leadership of Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards to recrimination. Initially, Yair Lapid, the leader of the opposition, congratulated the Israeli Air Force and its security services for delivering another coup. Very quickly he had to delete that post and replace it with a plea to release the hostages. Trump also swerved rapidly from admitting that he had greenlit the operation to saying he was very unhappy. Not about the choice of target, but about the city they decided to attack them in. Netanyahu has since dug in by threatening that if Qatar doesn't expel Hamas, Israel will hit them there again. Both Egypt and Turkey are also on full alert from an Israeli air attack. It would be a mistake to think that Netanyahu had not thought through what he was doing by ordering a strike on Hamas in Doha. He wanted to send a message to Qatar or any other Arab state that Israeli warplanes are free and capable of roaming the skies and striking anyone and anything it deems to be a target. This was an act of a Jewish supremacist state that is supremacist not just in Palestine, but throughout the region as a whole. Netanyahu's campaign to re-engineer the region has huge implications, not just for Israel's immediate neighbours, but for all states near and far from the country's borders, for the Gulf Cooperation Council states, and for those who have normalised relations with Israel by signing the Abraham Accords. In the short term, bombing Hamas meant bombing the negotiators. Had the attack succeeded, there would have been no one left in Hamas to negotiate with, no one with authority to tell any of the remaining guards in Gaza to release their prisoners. Not only that, but had the airstrike succeeded, Operation Summit of Fire, as the Israeli called it, would have meant the end of all attempts to get remaining hostages back alive. By bombing Hamas, Israel was bombing the negotiation process itself. Egyptian mediation has already ended, and it's hard to see how Qatari mediation can continue. So even now, with the Hamas negotiating team still alive, all negotiations to release the hostages are probably over. The only remaining avenue is for US envoy Steve Witkoff to take over the process and negotiate directly with Hamas himself over Israel's head. But that would mean Trump having to enforce it, having to force Israel to stop its ground operation in Gaza City, which he has shown no sign so far of doing. Besides, if Trump knew of Israel's Doha operation in advance, what value is there in any future guarantee he could give Hamas that they release all the hostages and the war would stop and Israel would withdraw? This is the second time that Israel has used an active negotiation process as a cover to launch a surprise attack. The first was its June assault on Iran, which began days before Iranian and US negotiators were due to meet in Oman about Iran's nuclear enrichment program. In this case, the Hamas negotiating committee was convening to discuss a ceasefire proposal written by Trump himself. It should be clear to all that Trump's guarantees are worthless. It should be equally clear that US security guarantees to Qatar, which hosts the biggest US base in the region, or any other Gulf state, are worthless too. So in the longer term, the implications of this failed airstrike are much more troubling for the Arab heads of state. Let's be under no illusion. The new generation of Arab autocrats who have taken over the reins in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE and Bahrain hate Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood and Hezbollah even more than Netanyahu does. But they have their own sovereignty and their own standing as leaders to think about. And Israel is trampling all over both. That is why the nations who in living memory laid siege to Qatar are now going to convene in it a meeting to bash out a collective response. Israel's aggression is forcing them to unite. Apart from boosting the stock of Hamas in the eyes of the Arab street, Israel is also reinforcing Hezbollah's message in Lebanon, where the government is attempting to get the party to disarm. Hezbollah's argument that disarming would leave the country completely vulnerable to the expansionist whims of their neighbour only gathers force. There is also no disguising the fact that Netanyahu is losing credibility at home, as he pushes the army to mount a major ground offensive against Gaza City. Hamas is fighting as ferociously today as it did on day one, and Israeli civilians and troops are dying in ever-increasing numbers. On Monday, 10 Israelis died in one day alone, 6 in a shooting attack in Jerusalem and 4 in a tank in Gaza. Both operations were claimed by Hamas. On Tuesday, Netanyahu failed to wipe out Hamas's leadership, but instead could have wiped out all attempts to end the 2-year conflict by negotiation. Hamas, on the other hand, has only gained in reputation. Trump now has a big problem on his hands with Netanyahu. If the Israeli strike does not clearly convey to Trump that following meekly in the footsteps of a rogue state led by religious fundamentalists will damage his standing as a world leader, then nothing will. Trump is a man who feels personal slights keenly and remembers them. This one was delivered by his closest ally. But this strike, first and foremost, is a wake-up call to the region as a whole. The US security umbrella, for which they paid so handsomely on Trump's last trip to the region, is worthless. The Abraham Accords are worthless too. No peace can be achieved by recognizing Israel. Only through a robust regional security alliance to contain Israel, by Israel being forced to feel how small a land it really is, and to pay the price of its diplomatic and economic isolation, will Netanyahu's hegemonic ambitions meet their true end.
Thank you for watching. I hope you've been able to make some sense out of this. Out of the nonsense, right in there will be some senses. Please put your comment in the comment section. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to this channel. I value more of your opinion. Please say something. See you next time, and bye-bye for now.